Greetings in the name of Ingayami and Yao Santiwa. All that is good and great, all that is blessed and beautiful, all that is creative and conscious, and all that is positive and possible. May all your blessings be infinite like the night stars, and all good things be never ending. Hotep, I am Adisa Olabayo Bankole, your host to Mind Vibe, Thoughts from a Curious Mind. A bi-monthly podcast series exploring and examining social phenomena then and now. Now, in this episode of Mind Vibes, I will be dealing with what I entitled Amnesia, a Caucasoid'S Aphrodisiac, the need for your whites to downplay our pain, black and color, people of color's pain and remembrance. But before we go there, hit the like button, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Now, let's deal with Amnesia, a Caucasoid'S Aphrodisiac, the need for Euro whites to downplay our pain and remembrance, those of blacks and people of color. Quote unquote, no child alive today is responsible for slavery. No one in this room is responsible for slavery. But each and every single one of us bears responsibility for writing the next chapter of history. We can't pretend that it didn't happen or deny people their right to exist. Mallory McMorrow, a senator in Michigan. Now, McQueen was looking at something with Trevor Noah, the black Tanzania South African comedian, and in this piece, Mr. Noah was exploring with other black comedians certain topics that even white comedians seem to not want to touch. Indeed, in this piece, many of the Afrikaners, white South Africans, expressed their quote-unquote frustration over their black counterparts, including in their routine, the black comedians' routine, the whole episode with the apartheid system that existed in Tanzania, South Africa. These Afrikaners consistently demonstrated their need to forget about the black African pain by downplaying their trauma, by saying that these atrocities are in the past and that the black Tanzanians, South Africans, should just forget about it. Now, I am not sure that kind of attitude would go over well and work with those Jews who suffered tremendously in the camps of Germany under Hitler's reign. In one of Maleficente's Asante's presentation, he states emphatically that we as black Americans, when we were freed from bondage, from the enslaved condition, that we were freed completely, that even the clothes on our backs were from the masters. Yet, there was no psychological assistance, there's no money aid, no assistance in any form for working for nearly 200 years for free. There was absolutely nothing. Even with the atrocities that were inflicted on us here in America, as was visited upon the blacks in Tanzania, South Africa, yet we are supposed to, quote unquote, forget about it. That we, as a collective, should just move on. That we should be in a constant state of forgiving the usurpers. Yet, this flies in the face of the celebration, memorials, the venerations of events and people that Caucasoids tend to give deference to. They say that past sins cast long shadows. This saying is poignant, especially when one wishes to forget their actions, their contributions to the atrocities that either they themselves have committed or was and is being committed in their name. Now, Stephen Colbert is a comedian, and he hosts The Late Show, and he once stated that we cannot allow the orange orangutan in his Goonies to get away with ripping innocent babies from their mother's breast, because these children don't resemble what orange orangutan refers to as, quote-unquote, Americans. Colbert states that we cannot allow them to do this in the American name, that there must be a price to pay for using, quote unquote, us as a shield to commit these types of atrocities. But he continues to saying, if we stay silent, then we contribute to the maladies that others suffer from the hands of others, conquistadors or oppressors. Now, this is something that, again, we have to always deal with. And Tim Rice always deals with the fact that this is not about guilt. It's about responsibility. Guilt is for what you have done. Responsibility is for who you are. And this is the type of things. But you see, this is something that white America, white Europeans, they want to venerate their own, but they don't want African people to venerate theirs, or people of colors to commemorate their own. They don't like to deal with, Chavez, or they don't like to deal with Nat Turner, or they don't like to deal with certain Asian people who went against them. Nandi of Jamaica that was part of the Maroon that went against them. They don't like that, right? But somehow or other, they want us to forget, But how do you tell that to those Jewish person who suffered under the hands of the Nazis? This amnesia of the Caucasoid that is an aphrodisiac is rooted in their inability to communicate to others, particularly those people of color. Their seeming missteps that often, brings clashes between those of colors and your white, which often ends tragically for those people of color. Yet, no Jewish person who, even if they themselves were not directly in the Nazi camps or who are generations far removed from the actual event, still contend with the reality and the aftermath of such horror that part of their DNA is never forget. You always hear that. We should never forget. Even the Germans, after the victory over Nazism, purged their traumatic history by dissolving all public displays of those events and that era, relegating them to museums and history books, but no major public displays of any ornament, statues, or writings in any public forums of that time. The Germans said, no, we're not going to venerate Hitler. We're not going to deal with those doctors who did all these horrible practices on those Jews and that. We're not going to put the flag of the Jewish symbol up there. And it's not going to be on our state buildings. We're not going to put all that stuff on that. But not here. Oh, no, not here. Not here in America, man. When the Confederacy, where the Confederacy is in full display via statues, monuments, flags, etc., of those who started the Civil War to maintain the institution of slavery and to keep their way of life. People like General Robert E. Lee, Jefferson Davidson, and something Stevens and others who took up arms against the Constitution of America to stop any momentum of the abolishing of free labor into forever. They wanted slavery forever. They wanted to work those beautiful black people. They wanted to work us from sun up to sunset, who were in perpetuity. Because this is how they were going to sit on their porches and drink mint tulip and stuff. That's what they saw. In fact, what you call him says in the film Lincoln, when Lincoln says, slavery, sir, is done. And he says, we won't get to know, we won't even know ourselves anymore. And it will destroy all our economy. So this is what they were fighting for. Yet, there is this great need to tell people of color who bore the brunt of European aggression, white American exceptionalism, and Africana entrenched brutality, that when our resistance got us from under their thumbs, we just simply need to forget about it or move on. Or better still, we need to not live in the past. But more importantly, we need to learn to forgive. Yet, meanwhile, events like the Alamo, American Revolution, Custer's Last Stand, the Battle of Instawana, the Spanish-American War, the loss of India, England's crown drew, Pearl Harbor, the day, as Roosevelt said, will live in infamy, even though Pearl Harbor was nowhere near Hawaiian mainland, which was not, at that time, an American state. And yes, who can forget the 9/11 memorial? You know, they go through all kinds of emotional things and psychological things to remember those things. You know, these events they remember and celebrate them with great bravado, or they lament or reflect on their great embarrassment or defeat at what was their quote-unquote invincibility. And that's what happened in Iswawana and the Zulus, who just massacre that whole British army, that invincible army. They just wiped it out, you know. The same way with Custer's Last Stand. You know, the indigenous people just sat down and wiped them out because they thought they were invincible. The same thing happened with Vietnam. You know, those people really said, no, we're not going to allow you to do this. And they drove America out, you know. Although the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Veterans Day, Columbus Day, President's Day, Memorial Day, are national holidays, all are celebrated with joviality. Hey, we're going to get the flags and the barbecue and the firecrackers and Thanksgiving we're going to get the turkey and the cranberry sauce and, Memorial Days we're going to put all the flags there. And on Labor Day, yeah, we're going to celebrate the labors, except, we ain't going to celebrate those people who are picking the melons in the, in the fields or working as servants in the hotels and maids in rich people's houses and blacks who sat down there and did work for nothing. We ain't going to celebrate, but we're going to celebrate Labor Day, So with all joviality and joy and stuff, we're going to celebrate. But last year, President Biden officially signed into law Juneteenth as a national holiday. And man, there was quite a fervor among many in the white communities. They became all discombobulated. That this was just pandering to black folks. And that we really don't need a holiday celebrating the freedom of blacks from bondage. That this would cause harm to the white American youths who would have to learn about the quote-unquote exceptionalism of America. This is what happened with Martin Luther King's birthday. What was his name? McCain, who suffered in Vietnam. No one denies that. And you can't tell me, when McCain was alive, you couldn't tell him to forget about his suffering in the camps and the Hotel Saigon. You couldn't tell him to forget about it when he was alive. But yet McCain, who represented Arizona, vehemently talked against the celebration of Martin Luther King. And back Arizona, it took them 10, 15 years in order to to deal with this celebration. So no. So there was this great amnesia aphrodisiac. This great amnesia aphrodisiac of Caucasoid has become their character, whether in Azania, South Africa, Australia, or the Americas. So much so that it becomes discombobulating, discomforted, and disoriented when they now must bear the pains, the burdens, and the cultural collective memories of what they caused. They're in trauma now. Because every Juneteenth now you're going to know that, slavery ended physically, not psychologically, but physically. That slavery ended. No one wants to witness what they themselves caused, especially their cruelties, their indifference of others. Yet, when they are forced to deal with these episodes in their history, they become angry, frustrated, and denialist. This is what Dr. Robin DiAngelo talks about when she deals with white fragility, of how they become, denialist. They have, all these defenses about who they are as whites. Those blacks and other people of color get to remember, reflect, and rejoice of not only about their suffering they endured, but rejoice of what it took to get from under the suffering. We celebrate and venerate our heroes and sheroes, the moments when the fullness of our resolve, even at the bemoaning of the Caucasoid'S. Because this is what commemorations are about. Not only to remember, but rejoice in one's liberation from the cruelties, but the continuation of one's vision. And this is what we do. We commemorate our liberation. We rejoice in our vision. We move to that rhythm that allows us now to see of what we could not see before. But for some reason, Caucasoids, white Americans, white Europeans, somehow or another, they can be all emotional about their thing. But for some reason, it's a discontentment to them to see us celebrate us. Right? And this is again about control. How you wish to control people. And as long as whites continue to do that, humanity will always be dangling in the air. It would be like a lost planet floating in the universe looking for a home. And we would not move one iota until we begin to resolve certain issues. And if we cannot do that, inertia will be what we will continue to be in, rather than to be in a more humane state. And this is not a place we should be. Now, this is my episode of Caucasoid'S Amnesia, their aphrodisiac. This is the Diesel Bio Bancoli again saying, stay tuned for other episodes, but until then, may we all strive to bend the arc of justice towards humanity and believe that love and peace can be achieved. Madasi P.